Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Dotson, and the purpose of this series of videos is going to be studying bash scripting, and the main purpose of that is to help some Cyber Patriot teams that I'm mentoring currently. So today we're going to be reviewing some Linux commands that we're going to be using a lot when we are bash scripting. So we're not necessarily going to get to scripting right off the bat, but we will review some very important commands, and then I will pull up a virtual machine, we'll go over them, and see what they actually do. So let's get into it. So the first command we have is the ls command. This command just allows you to find the location of a file. It will display a list of the files in your current directory. A couple popular options. The -l option will display the details on each file. It'll show file permissions. It'll show the user who is associated with that file, the group that's associated with that file, the file byte size, and the time and date that that file was created. You can also see if that file is a directory, an executable, or just a regular text file. -A, this other option displays hidden files. So any file name that starts with a period is considered a hidden file, and if you do an ls normally, it will not show up. If you do the -A option, you will see that those files do show up. Sometimes they're system files, sometimes they're files someone may want to hide from others intentionally. So there are different reasons why they may be hidden. You can also search a different directory by specifying the directory after you have options. So I could be sitting in my home directory, which would be /home/Joe, for example. And if I wanted to search the SSH folder, I could do that. I could do an ls, that's the command, -l, and then /etc/SSH, and it would display all of the files in the SSH folder. chmod is another very important command. This is a bit more complicated. There are a few different ways of working with this command and setting permissions. This command is used to change who can read, write, and execute a file. There are three categories of users that are very important to note: the user, the group, and others. And there are several different methods of using it, but primary method that I will be instructing and showing is the octal method. So as you can see below in the bold is the full command. So you have chmod 777, and then you have a file path. So the file path just tells the computer where the file is, that it's actually changing the permissions for, so we shouldn't be too worried about that. It'll change depending on what you're doing. So the critical part is the 777. And once I pull up the virtual machine, hopefully this may be a little bit more clear to view. But the first 7 stands for the user, the second 7 stands for the group, and the third 7 stands for all other users. Now there are 3 different options, or like I said, there's read, write, and execute. Read is given a value of 4, write is given a value of 2, and execute is given a value of 1. All of those together equals 7. So the key is you pick which values you want for which users, and then you add their equivalent number values, and you determine which number option you would like to set the permissions. So for example, if I'm going to give a user read, write, and execute permission, I'm going to add up read, which is 4, write, which is 2, and execute, which is 1, that equals 7. If I want to give the group only write and execute permissions, that's going to be write, which is 2, and execute, which is 1, so that's going to be 3. If I want to give everyone else who is not associated with the group only read permissions, then that is going to be a 4. Note that if you have a folder, executing a folder means that you are able to open a folder. So if you want people to be able to read the contents of the folder, they also have to be able to execute it. The echo command is also another important command. So the echo command will print text, or you can redirect it to some other command or to another file. So for example, echo hello world. That what you see in bold at the top there is the command, and it will provide the output right below the command hello world. You can also use it to redirect the text to a file. So I'm using the right arrow once to direct it to a file with the name of my choice. In this case, I've chosen log.txt. Very important difference is if we want to append text to the file, so that just means we're going to add it, we have to have two right arrows. So if we have a single right arrow, please just remember that it's always going to rewrite over your information. So if you have multiple lines doing this, all of your old data is going to be overwritten and you're not going to have it in that file. It's going to be destroyed and replaced with the new text of that echo command. The read command we won't be looking at too much today, but it stores user input as a variable, and this allows you to use that input in a script, and then based on different user input you can choose to do different things. It allows for user interaction, and it's very important if you're working with a script and want to have real-time input. Here are a few file and directory commands which pretty much everyone should know. CP is copy a file, so you'll have two file names or directory locations after that, and I'll show you how that works. Move, you can move a file, you can make a new directory, you can remove a directory, you can remove a file, and then the touch command creates a blank file with the given name. So those are useful commands that you're going to need to know, if you have a file in the wrong folder, whatever happens. It's very simple to just type in a command and just move the file. And then we will talk about functions and variables at a later time. So for now, we're going to open up a virtual machine. Alright, so I'm opening up terminal. This is Ubuntu 14.04, but you should be able to do these commands on any version of Linux that's available. So the first command we looked at today was the ls command. So I'm going to do ls, and I hit enter to actually run it, just in case you're not familiar with this. But you can see I have the desktop document downloads folder, so the folders are generally shown in blue. Scripts are usually shown in green, and I have file names just here in the white text. So an ls will show all of my file names. So if I do an ls-a, as we discussed, you're going to see those hidden commands. A lot of these are just, we have our bash history, we have bash logout, so a lot of these are system files. Nothing that I necessarily need to know is there. They're just auto-generated by the computer, and they're in my user folder. If we do an ls-l, we're going to see a long listing. So here we have those permissions. These are the permissions. This is the user ID. This is the username. I'm actually not sure if this is the user ID. I may have misspoken there. This is the group name. This is the file size. This is the date, and you can see the time also. And then this is the file, or here in this case, directory name. So if it's a directory, you'll see at the beginning of the permissions that it's marked with a D. So just a helpful hint to keep in mind. And then you can see an R stands for read, the W stands for write, and the X stands for execute. So if you're trying to calculate file permissions, you can add the read is 4, write is 2, execute is 1. That's going to equal 7. So the octal number for this would be 7, and then 4 plus 1, 5, and then the same for here. So the octal number for this directory would be 755. The D does not play into the permissions, it's just letting you know that it's a folder. Okay, and then I'll just do a clear to clear the screen. You can do that at any point. Then also know if you hit the up arrow on your keyboard, you will cycle through the commands, so instead of having to retype it every single time, do that to save yourself a lot of time. So also just note if you can also combine options, so I can do -al, I can do -la, they will provide the same output, and I'll see a long listing, but it will also include those hidden files and folders. So the next command is the chmod command, and I'm going to find a file that I created for this example. So I'm going to do ls fish, and I'm going to see that the fish file is there. I'm going to do a long listing of that fish file and see what the permissions are. So I can see I have 7 on the first block, I have 7 in the second block, and I have no permissions on the third block. So that would be 770. So I want to change this file so that it is readable, writable, and executable by everyone on this computer. So to do that, I'm simply going to do chmod 777, then the file name. And you can insert a file absolute address or relative address if you want to there, if you're changing it from a different folder. So I've changed the permissions, and I will now redo the long listing. We can see that the permissions have updated here. So now let's say I want to remove all permissions except for myself, and I'm only going to give myself read permissions and execute permissions. So to do that, I would do chmod 500 fish. Again, we can cycle through, back through, look at the long listing, and we can see how those permissions have changed. So the next command we're going to look at is echo. So the echo command simply prints text onto the terminal screen. So for example, I'm going to do hello world, and I'm going to see hello world printed directly below my prompt. So that may not always be useful. Sometimes we may want to redirect the output of this command to a screen. And we may have a variable that contains text and we're wanting to save that text, and that's maybe more useful than this example, but this will serve just fine. So we'll use that right arrow, and then we'll just type in a file name, and it can be a new file name. The system will create it if it does not exist. So no, I'm going to put this on file 1 on the desktop. So now I'm going to hit enter, and you're going to see that nothing actually showed up. So that hello world, instead of showing up here, if I open up this file 1, it's on my desktop, you can see hello world has been written here. So now I'm going to do that command again. I'm going to type in hello Mars. You're going to see nothing happens again. If I open up the file 1, I'm going to reload it, and it says hello Mars. So you can see it's overwriting the contents every single time. If I want to just add contents, I need to add a second arrow, and then I can change my echo and run it, and I'm going to reload the file, and we can see we have hello Mars, hello Venus. So it's going to be adding to the file instead of just rewriting it over every single time. Also a very important command. Alright, so now let's look at, we won't look at read this time, that will we'll look at that when we actually do a script, but let's look at some of the simple commands everyone should know. So the first one, I did not mention this in the presentation, but pwd, this will show you where you are in the system, and it stands for print working directory. If you're used to a Windows environment, directory is pretty much equivalent to a folder. So just simple refresher if you are not familiar with this. This / right here on the very left hand side of the home represents the root folder, and the whole entire system is contained in the root folder. From there we have the home folder, and the home folder contains all of the user folders, and you can see that my user folder name is A. Jones, and that is where I am currently at in the system and where I am doing things from. And of course I can move around in the system, so I can move to a folder higher than me, I can move to a folder lower than me, and depending on the permissions I may or may not be able to enter it. But just for example, we can look and see that I have multiple folders or directories underneath me. So I want to move to my desktop directory and accomplish and do my work from there. So to do that, I'm going to do cd and then the directory name. And you can see that my prompt has changed and it has the /desktop, so that lets me know where I am. This tilde right here tells me that that is my home directory. So it's telling me from my home directory, I'm underneath the desktop directory. If I wanted to change all the way to the root folder, I could do that. So now you can see that tilde is gone and I only have the /. If I wanted to change the home directory, I can do that. So I'm going to clear my screen just so we can see more easily. Note, if you are jumping like 2 levels down, you have to specify the entire thing. So the system isn't going to be able to see necessarily through different folders. So if I want to move to my desktop folder from the home folder, I'm going to have to specify my username, then a / and then the subfolder name. So then I can move. If I just did change desktop from my home folder, there's no desktop folder underneath the home folder, so it would not find one and it would tell you there's none found. So to change directory, if you want to go just back up 1 level, you can just do cd and then 2 dots, and that will put me back to my home folder, or I can do that again, and now I'm in home. If you just do the cd command with no options, it will take you back to your home directory. It won't take you to the home directory. Your home directory is your folder with your name on it, which is A. Jones. In this case, which is A. Jones. If I do cd and then the tilde, it will also take me to my home directory. You can see there's no change there because I was already in my home directory. Alright, so hopefully that shows you a little bit about the cd commands, and print working directory will always show you where you are if you ever do get confused. So now another command for working with files is copy. So I'm going to go to my I'm just actually going to stay here, and I'm going to copy the fish file to the whale file. And you can see I have no error messages, so that means I'm good. I can see here that whale file was created. Awesome. Alright, so I can also move a file to another file, and this is helpful if you want to rename a file, for example. So I want to rename the whale file shark. So I'm going to move whale to the shark file, and you can see there's no response output, so I have shark here, so that means everything worked well. I could also move it to a different folder. So if I want to move shark to the pictures, then / if you do a period, it will keep the same name, or you can rename it. So I'll just rename it minnow. You can see that I had no error messages back. I'm going to do an ls on the pictures folder, and I can see that minnow is there. So it changed the name. Or I could keep the name if I just used a dot or just typed in the full name again. So that's a little bit about move. Clear the screen again. So now I'm going to make a new folder, and to do that I'm going to use the mkdir command and then the folder name. So before I do that, I'm actually going to change to the desktop folder so that you can see it as it's created. So I'm going to do mkdir and then the folder name, which I'm just going to type in as scripts. Alright, so here you can see on my actual desktop I have a scripts folder created. To remove that folder, I'm just going to do remove dir scripts. Note you do have tab completion, so your computer, if you're typing even just a command in or a file name, if there's only one option, if you hit tab, it will usually auto-complete it so you don't have to type out the whole thing. Now if I have a folder and it has something in it, then I will not just be able to remove the directory, I will have to actually remove the file and then the directory. So for example, I just added a file to the scripts folder. You can see file 1 is in there. So let's try to remove it with remove dir. Failed to remove it because the directory is not empty, so it's going to automatically disallow you from doing that. So you have to use the remove command, and then you have to use the -r option, which stands for recursive. And you can see it deleted it. It didn't even ask you if you wanted to delete it again. It just deleted it. And note, it doesn't go to a trash can, so using the rm-r command is pretty dangerous, as you could imagine. You know, if you go to the root folder and run that command, you'll destroy your entire system and delete it all, so you don't want to do that. So this wraps up some of the basic Linux command review. I'll be adding other commands, and as we go along we may learn a few more, but hopefully you get a chance to just work with some of these on your own. And actually one more I forgot is the touch command. I'm trying to remember which one I forgot. So the touch command, just the word touch and then the file name, and it will create it in that folder. So it is blank, there's nothing in it. It's a quick way to create a file and very useful, especially if you're working in command line and you just want to see if output is created or something like that. Alright, so thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.